welcome to the keys to unlocking your ideal HR career transition. Just a couple logistical things. My name is Scott Rosen, and I'm seeing this more as a facilitation than a presentation. So, I'd like really to get your input and your ideas and your updates on what's going on in your career. So you can either, I believe, raise your hand, you can write a question in the chat, and I will, I'll just turn it to you, turn your microphone on, and allow you to provide your comment or ask your question. So, let's see. Okay, so I've done this presentation a bunch of times now. I do it for groups, but I also do it for individuals when I'm doing one-on-one coaching, mostly with HR people. People seem to be appreciative of it, and the people that seem to be executing on some of the ideas seem to be doing very well in their searches. So just want to give a little background on my company. Obviously, we place HR people, we do contract to hire, perm. We do some career and executive coaching and some HR tech consulting. That's always, when I tell people I place HR people, they always kind of look at me and kind of tilt their head and say, oh, that's interesting. And so, this niche I've had this for 28 years and pretty much industry agnostic, and we pretty much cover all functional areas of HR. And then we also cover all levels of positions from, an HR admin generalist all the way up to a VP CHRO. So it's a boutique business, but we've had a lot of success over the years. We have a huge database. I think we have 6,000 or 7,000 HR people in it. Usually we get our database built just through people either submitting their resume or just saying they want to get our newsletter, those types of things. So let's start talking about the insights. So we've done some research. I've had some anecdotal research just based on conversations that I've had with HR people and what I've seen over the years in terms of how people are finding jobs, how they're going about their transitions. I've seen a lot of executives down to, again, HR admins, generalists, succeed in their search. And I guess my first insight is that 10 to 15% of new job opportunities come through standard resources. So when I say standard resources, I mean LinkedIn, Indeed, and Monster, and also through recruiters like myself. So that's a pretty small percentage of the total number of opportunities there are for finding jobs. And that's what we're going to really spend most of our time on today, is some of these other kind of hidden ways that people would find jobs. So 80% roughly will find their jobs through networking. That's utilizing a number of resources, which we'll talk about. I've got a lot of success stories of people who have been out there networking, and whether it's referrals or informational interviews or other people talking about job openings that might be a better fit for you than for them. But it all comes down to getting out there and having conversations with people. And these aren't job interviews. These are conversations that you're having with various people. Again, we'll get more into that. So the first thing I usually talk about with candidates when I'm doing some career coaching is, what are you doing right now at your organization? What's working? What's not working? What is the issue or event that might be causing you to start looking? Is something happening in your organization that you have no control over? Or have you decided it's time to move on? Again, all these scenarios are happening in organizations. If you are interested in leaving, why is that? So a lot of my conversations with HR leaders is, I'm reading the tea leaves, things aren't looking that great. I got to prepare myself, I have a safety net. We're going through an acquisition. I don't know what's going to happen. Company was acquired. Those types of things. There's a new HR leader in the business, and I'm not sure if my job is going to be there. So these are the kinds of questions about why you would want to leave your current role. And then, are you confidentially starting to search for a new role, or are you in transition? A lot of people are hesitant or anxious about putting out the fact that they are starting to look. I think that's normal. Hopefully the people that you talk to, including whether it's an agency or, anybody that you connect with through ads, you want to make sure that they will maintain confidentiality. I've found, the great majority of the time, people will honor that. But, you've got to be selective about the people you're going to network with. So that's important if you're in transition. If you're confidentially starting to search. In transition, it's obviously less of an issue. One of the things I find that people say, well, I haven't been working for 6 months, or I've been doing consulting in the last year. Is that a bad thing to include on my resume, or should I leave it blank? I think the world of candidate world has changed dramatically over the years. And, I find that a large percentage of HR people, even if they're in transition, might be doing something in HR. They might be consulting, they might be doing contract work, or even if they're working out of HR, I don't think it's a bad thing to be able to communicate, that you left your last position and you're currently doing some contract consulting work. I think, like if you put, 2018 to 2022, and you leave it blank after that, people will start asking questions in their minds. What's this person been doing since 2022? Do you think you have to put some thought and be mindful about how you describe what you've been doing? So that's important. Again, feel free if you want to have any questions, or, I'd love to hear people who are in any of these situations, and what their experiences have been in terms of transition, what's worked for you, what hasn't worked for you. So anyway, you're asking these questions. I'll just make a comment about the market right now, because people are always asking that question. So, you all know that the economy has had a rough year, maybe even a little more. We are aware of that, and that people, there's a lot of fluidity, and a lot of, let's say, activity in the HR world. People are coming and going. There are job opportunities, but I think what was a candidate market has now become a more of an employer market. And what that means is that, if employers looking for a HR director, let's say, they're less inclined to to use a third party if they don't have to, which means a slowdown in the staffing industry. They're also, start with word of mouth. Do you know anybody? And then, then they'll use whatever their LinkedIn page, possibly Indeed, to start looking. But, employers are getting lots and lots of candidates. So it's become a much more competitive market. And as a result of that, particularly if you are applying to an ad, you can be pretty certain that you're up against quite a number of candidates. And which is why I go back to saying that networking, referrals, and things like that are a much better method than using ads and recruiters in this type of environment. I'm not saying don't use them. I think it's a good idea to use whatever resources you can. I just think that a lot of people tend to avoid the networking. And I can probably give some reasons, and I've talked to people. It's a tough situation if you're in transition or you want to be, because many people aren't used to it. They've been in their jobs for significant periods of time. They are, quite frankly, afraid of rejection. The answer to that is you really have to kind of consider the transition process, the sales and marketing process. Usually when I coach people, I talk about sales and marketing. A lot of candidates will say, "Hey, that's not me. I'm not a salesperson. I'm not a marketing person." However, you are for the time period that you are in transition. And that makes a lot of people uncomfortable because sales is going out, it's facing rejection, it's the ability to reach out to enough people to ask them questions or even ask for help or favors. And again, that's uncomfortable for a lot of people. So I'll talk more about that. So we do have a Q&A question that says, can you speak to an HR professional who may want to step down in responsibility as they are nearing retirement? I anticipate retiring at age 60, which means I have about 5 years left to work. I've been the director of HR for many years. The organization was acquired 3 years ago, and the culture and environment are changing quickly. I need a better work-life balance. Thank you for that question. So it's interesting. I can speak from my experience doing search. What will happen a lot of times is somebody who says, hey, I need a contractor, I need a consultant to come in here. I don't want somebody who's overexperienced. I want somebody who's junior to mid-level, blah, blah, blah. And what I usually say to those employers is, you could get really, really great talent. Yes, they may be overexperienced for the project you want, but they're willing to roll their sleeves up and do it. You're not paying for necessarily the level that you're at. You're paying for the work that's being asked to be done. So whether you're in negotiation with a company and they're scared because you have too much experience, then you can reassure them that they will be getting somebody who will hit the ground running, isn't afraid to roll their sleeves up. Now, when I'm in as an intermediary, as a staffing company, I have a pretty good track record of influencing employers to be open to that. So I guess my answer is, it really doesn't matter what your age is. What matters really is your ability to be flexible and roll your sleeves up. Now, I'm not going to talk about ageism. I'm just like I'm not going to talk about any other types of discrimination. But we all know that exists out there, and unfortunately, no employer's ever going to admit to it or say it. But that is the reality of the marketplace. However, I would say there's many, many, many companies that would love to have somebody with a lot of experience, who's been through a lot of different situations. I will say though that you still need to stay up on technology. You need to stay up on the different types of tools that are being used today, whether it's applicant tracking systems or different types of technologies that are being used across the board. If you don't sort of have those basic skills, that might hurt you in your search. So I hope that answered your question. If you want to ask any follow-up, please do so. So let me go on to the next slide. Let's see. Okay, so this is sort of a continuation of self-discovery. What are your goals? Are you looking to, like the person who just asked, maybe take on something with less responsibility so that they have more work-life balance? And I think that that's a perfectly reasonable goal and objective. Or you want to go to the next level in a company, you want to go from a director to a VP, or you want to go from a generalist or business partner to a manager. Those are the kinds of goals. What I find with a lot of candidates is they sell themselves short, meaning that they don't, they don't think that they're valuable enough to, to really have, to maintain or even increase their salary, their compensation, types of jobs they're looking for. I would chalk that up to self-esteem. A lot of it, particularly if somebody's been in transition for a while, they start to lower their bar and they start to say, well, I'll take a lower salary. And you may want to do that, but like if it's not, it's possible if you hang on to what you want, you can be successful with that. So I guess my advice is don't sell yourself short. So the, sorry, I have to keep coming back. So we talked about that. So I'll start talking about LinkedIn a little bit. Like I said, we have probably about 6,000 contacts in LinkedIn, most of which are HR people. And they're in there because they want to get our newsletter, they want to check in on job openings, they may have needs, various reasons. And I always ask the question, both of myself and of a candidate, is like, how many of your database on LinkedIn, let's say you have 100 contacts, how many do you think will actually return your phone call or set up a meeting with you? The percentage goes dramatically down. So if you have 100 contacts in LinkedIn, most people will say, 10 or 15 or 20 people will take my call. That's important because it speaks to a couple things. First of all, don't take it personally, because I think that that's true of almost anyone, including myself. And also, it's a good reason to build your LinkedIn database. So you probably should at least have 100 or more contacts in your LinkedIn profile. These are people who have connected with you, that are first degree connections, that you could send an email to, or you could send an email to, or a message, because you're connected. And then, once you have done that, and you obviously you're going to pick the people that you really want to reach out to. And once you've done that, then you can start a conversation. And, usually a conversation goes a little bit like that. And I'll talk a little bit more about what you might want to share. Also mention some tools as we go along that you might want to consider. Things to think about. What do you want in terms of a title? My suggestion always here is be flexible, because a manager in one company could be a director in another, could be a VP in another. So, you really never know who you're going to work with that might look at your title. Maybe you were in a smaller company, had a larger title, or you were in a larger company and had So all those title issues, I would be flexible. I do have a question. If my local title is CHRO, but my work is more on the level of a VP, how do I ensure that my title doesn't hinder consideration for roles? So it's a good question. Thank you. So the answer to that specific question. So, you can approach this different ways. Some people go to the head of HR because if you do quote unquote run, thank you. He doesn't need to, or she doesn't need to ask the question live. What I'm thinking a lot of times is I'll say, just call yourself head of HR. You can, that's not an inappropriate thing to do. And I've seen a lot of candidates do that so that they remain open to different opportunities. And you could say head of HR for, a small company, a large company, a medium-sized company, and that will give the potential employer information that they can kind of gauge your level of experience. So that's kind of how I would frame that. One thing to think about is your compensation. What are you looking for? Again, don't undersell yourself. A lot of people say, well, I'm happy with just what I'm making now, or I'd even take a step back. Again, you might want to think that through, because again, that's not necessarily the case. You could set up a range, with the range being above your current or most recent compensation, and whatever your lower boundary is. Some questions to ask yourself is, what is your geographic scope? Are you willing to relocate? That's an important question. Do you want to work 100% on site? Do you want to work hybrid? Do you want to work remotely? Those are like deal breaker questions that you really need to get it, to be clear on and communicate that both in your communications, whether they be live or over email. It's important to do that because you want to get those knockout factors out of the way pretty quickly. So that's important. And I know a lot of people who are working for work-life balance either want that hybrid or remote. And some seems like employers are getting a bit more, moving a bit more to, we need you on site more. And I've seen candidates kind of shift or pivot where they said, no, I'm only going to work remotely, or maybe now I'll go in a couple days to, I'll go in 3 days or 4 days. So again, you have to think about flexibility, which is important. So here's just a little bit more detail about how to take LinkedIn and use it to your advantage. Let's say you have 100 people in your database. Create a list of 25 people who you would say are trusted contacts. Send a message to them. Be sure that they won't violate confidentiality. But this is what they call an informational interview. This isn't, do you have a job for me? This is, hey, it's been a while since we've caught up. I see we have a lot of connections in common. Are you willing to set up a 15-minute, chat via, virtual or with the phone, or if we're close enough, let's meet for coffee. And so you want to have as many of those conversations as you can. And what you'll do really is you'll sort of, everybody likes being catered to their ego. So you kind of want to start off with asking them questions. How's it going? How do you feel about your job? How did you get there? If you don't mind me asking, what were some of the pathways that you used to get where you are today? And so then you've got them kind of, softened up, as my sales coach would say. And then you can say, hey, do you mind if I tell you about my situation? Sure. Yeah. What's going on? And then you can tell them what's going on with your career. You can tell them about your situation, and then ask them if they have any ideas or contacts. Now, a lot of times if you do that, somebody might say, oh, you know what, we've got some changes coming up at our company. They might not be imminent, but if you check back with me in a month or two, we may have an opening that might match your skills. At that point, by the way, it's okay to send them a resume. You want to ask them, is it okay if I send you my resume or my LinkedIn profile? Sure. So the thing is like they may offer, volunteer an opportunity within their company. You also want to ask the question, do you know anybody else that it might be worthwhile for me to talk to? And if they say yes, ask them to make an introduction so that, it becomes a warm lead versus you having to reach out. And so, believe it or not, these are sales coaching tools. They're not, hold on one second. I've got somebody knocking on the door. No, I can't do it. I'm on a webinar. It texted me. I can't do it anymore. Okay. Sorry about that. Somebody here that was going to change my lock. So anyway, that's some of my suggestions about using LinkedIn in that way. I'll also mention a tool to you that we've been using that's been very successful. It's called Copilot AI or Copilot Artificial Intelligence. And it's a tool that links with LinkedIn. And what it does is if you target the kinds of people you want to talk to by title, by company, by geography, you can narrow down a list of people in, let's say, your area, if you're in the Philly area, and the artificial intelligence will reach out to people that match your profile, and it'll begin a conversation. It'll, as if it's coming from you, it'll send a message saying, hi, I'd love to link up with you. It looks like we know some of the same people, blah, blah, blah. And so that's kind of like a warm-up message. Then it will automatically, if it doesn't hear back from the person and you set the time frame within 2 weeks or 3 weeks or a month or whatever, it'll send another message and say, hey, just reaching out again, haven't heard from you. Wanted to see if you might, want to connect and have a quick conversation or something like that. And then it'll send a third message if you still haven't heard from them, if you want to send it. You don't have to send a third, but, a lot of times people miss the messages or they just didn't get to it. So it's called Copilot AI. Check it out. And it's not that expensive. And I think you can do like a month to month. And they have like these complimentary calls that you can have with them so you can find out more about how you might be able to use the product. But we've had great success with it in terms of just getting conversations with people. So that's an idea. Now we're talking about marketing. That was sort of sales 101. This is marketing 101. One thing you want to do with this list of your key contacts is you want to send them some kind of a regular, it doesn't have to be a newsletter or anything like that. It could just even be a short, email saying something like, hey, thanks for your time recently. Haven't reached out for a while. Just wanted to give you an update on what's going on. I've been interviewing and have had 3 final interviews. Unfortunately, none of them have panned out at this point, but I continue to look. Here's a reminder of the types of things that I'm looking for, et cetera, et cetera. Now you can send this out like as an individual message, but I don't know how sophisticated you are with Excel or your Outlook, but there are ways that you can send, let's say 25 messages at a time. It can have relatively the same content, and it will show up as an individual message to each person. That way you're saving time. But it is like a mini newsletter. It's like you're sending out an update. And that's really what marketing is. It's sending out, the types of information that somebody would want to hear. And when I get those messages, it jogs my memory. It reminds me, oh yeah, this person we talked, 3 weeks ago, hadn't heard from them. Okay, this is what's going on. So you want to be top of mind. In that, you can tell them the kinds of jobs you've been looking at. You can tell them the companies that you've been talking to. You can tell them what your explorations have yielded so far. So all of those are, good. That's a good idea to go ahead and do that. So that's like sales and marketing 101. And again, my thought is that you should be spending probably 75–80% of your time on this type of outreach and discussion activity. If you're just going to wake up and respond to job postings or call recruiters, you put yourself at really just put yourself in there with everybody else. You're not separating yourself from the pack. You're not making yourself stand out. And as many career coaches will tell you is, you want to have that competitive advantage. And you do that from having these kinds of conversations. I'm not telling you not to use recruiters, job boards, and things like that. I'm just saying this is important. Obviously, you want to get involved in any networking groups. So that could be SHRM, that could be PSPS if you're in the Philadelphia area. There's a lot of groups to attend, and through those groups, you can get a lot of conversations started. So, if you meet one or two people at a networking event and they're willing to follow up with you, then, it's worth the evening, in my opinion. So that would be an idea that I have. Just looking to see. Okay. So it says there's a great book called New Sales Simplified that you can use as a workbook that walks you through sales and marketing if you apply it to your job search. That's awesome. Thank you. It's called New Sales Simplified. And it helps you apply sales techniques. So that's awesome. That's a great situation. Again, this is a limited period of time that you're going to do this. It definitely is a stretch. And so this is, this is an opportunity for you to, stretch. If you need like a coach or a cheerleader or somebody who can help you kind of stick to your plan, that can be done, through hiring somebody, who's in the field of career coaching and who can help you with that. I'm just going to mention a couple of initiatives that we have, or the Rosen Group has started, I've started. One's called the HR Department of the Year Awards. If you're working, you may want to consider applying. Deadline's the end of August. But even if you're in transition, it's a great event. It takes place in November. I think it's the 16th this year. It's at the Crystal Tea Room in Philly. There's literally hundreds of HR leaders that come out. Great networking. Suggest you might consider it. It's hrawards.org. We do webinars during the year. If you're not, formally in our database and you want to receive notices about it, it's definitely worth checking out. Let's see. We also run an HR group for executives. You have to be, VP level or above, and you need to be in a job. Currently, you can't be in transition, but if you do fit those criteria, it's a great opportunity to network with other HR leaders. We also have a group for talent acquisition leaders, which is called TALA. If you're interested in any of these initiatives, just feel free to reach out to me. I'll provide my contact info at the end. And those are some things that, but again, there's lots of groups out there. There's Disrupt HR, and there's another talent acquisition group, and there's HR Person of the Year awards. So there's a lot of opportunity. Um, so just some final thoughts, and I do want to keep it open to questions, or we can end early, whatever you guys want. Set that time to give yourself the time to do this work, because it is work. 15, 25% of your day. It's your job to find a job in a way. So you got to kind of treat it that way. You got to wake up in the morning, put on your pajamas in your business, your whatever you're wearing, and just go to work. I think getting out too is really important. I think a lot of people have sort of developed a little bit of malaise about getting out into the marketplace and meeting people for coffee, going to events. I think it's really important. And I think it's back up. I think a lot of meetings are taking place in person. Some of these are obvious, be organized, be consistent in your career search, and take care of yourself. Like, that's a big one. There's a lot of people get down. They have good days and bad days in transition. And sometimes when you're having a bad day, it seems like it's all doom and gloom and you're not really feeling up to it. So one of the best ways to take care of that is make sure you take care of yourself, make sure you're getting enough sleep, eating right, exercising, trying to keep your stress level down, trying to connect with people who are positive, stay away from toxic people. I'm finding, I try to stay away from toxic people, negative people who sort of, I don't know, down, they're not lifting you up, they're pulling you down. And, you really need to stay away from those people and set a boundary. So I do have a question here. I'm currently director, coming up on 2 years. I have 13 years in HR with upward mobility. The next step in my career would be a senior director or VP. What would be your advice to move into a first-time VP level role? Thank you for the question. So obviously you're ambitious. You want to, climb that proverbial corporate ladder. So really it's a lot of it's about mindset and positioning yourself. So obviously you're wanting to share that with anybody and everybody that you talk to, that you're ready for the next level. You also want to have the reasons why you're ready for the next level. What are you doing, or what have you done to demonstrate that you're ready for the next level? So whether that's in your resume or if it's in a cover letter, it's okay, it's great that you're looking for the next level, but why do you deserve it? And so, that's really important to get that confidence around that desire. And then, you want to make sure you sell it and you market it. So, and I think that's really the best you can do. And don't settle. It may take longer to find a role like that, but, it's worth it. I would imagine someone in your shoes that, you don't want to stay at the same level. You're ready for the next thing. And so self-esteem, but, elevator pitch, make sure you're saying what you want. And when you have those informational interviews, you can ask people, let's say, who are at VP or CHOR level, how did you get there? What did you do? So those are, I don't know if that answered your question, but that's what I would think. The HR awards are November 16th. You can register now. It's like a 4-hour celebration. If you want your company to apply, you can just reach out to me. Let's see. So there's my contact information. If you want to reach out to me for any reason, not just the awards program, but anything I've talked about today, and you want to just let me know what's going on. If you do want to talk about the HR awards, you can either reach out to me or Mark Spool, who I can connect you with, and you can apply till the end of the year. So just kind of want to open it up for the last 10 minutes or so. Does anybody, I'd love to hear some shares of people who are either in transition or thinking about it, and what your experience has been like. I'd love to hear from a few people if you're brave enough to share your thoughts. Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. And like, just hang in there and, just push that extra, do you know what I mean? Push a little bit harder and work a little bit harder. And you'll separate yourself. So I think, I'll be curious. If you want to send your resume over, feel free to do so. And, we can stay in touch with each other. Thanks. And I've had conversations, recently. He's a really talented HR/talent acquisition person, talent management. And, if anybody was going to have, opportunities and choices, would certainly be up there in the top of the groupings. And here she is describing the challenges of the marketplace. So, it's just demonstrating, how challenging it can be. But support, get people to support you, get people around you, again, who are cheerleaders, and you will have a better chance at success. So thank you for that. Okay, anybody else? I see a question: how relevant are cover letters in this age of ATS filters? I think cover letters, maybe that's not even the right word we should use anymore. Like, so you have a resume, and then, there's times where probably better when you've connected with someone already in some way, that then you can tailor I'll call it your note to them to reflect whatever. If you've had a conversation, hey, thank you so much for your time. Just wanted to point out a few things. But again, you're sort of pointing to the filters being, usually the filters take place when you're applying for jobs through, LinkedIn. And my advice is stay away from, stay away from these systems, because once you get sucked into these systems, you're right. You're going to get, you're going to get the, type of you're going to have a good chance of getting rejected. And again, there's a lot of lawsuits out there about ATS systems and, what they're using to screen people in or out. And that's a whole other story. But, that's why I sort of said 75–80% of your success is going to be through personal networking, not through these job boards. I don't know how many interviews any of you have gotten through job boards, and, kudos if you have. But, for the 1 or 2 or 3 people they select, they've rejected hundreds, and not necessarily for the right reasons. So, and I don't know that a cover letter is going to help that much, because it's not like people sit around reading cover letters these days. They almost don't read resumes because they're waiting for their technology to tell them what to do. So not sure if that answered your question. Somebody said use ChatGPT for cover letters. We had this conversation at a recent event. It's funny that yes and no. I use ChatGPT for a letter I sent to challenge a claim that was denied by my health insurance. And oh my God, the letter was like so well written. And, I changed a few things, but you want to make sure that you're being authentic, and ChatGPT will help you as long as you've given them accurate information. They're not giving you information that's not reflective of what you want to communicate, but it can be a help. So I got a question. Can you send out a specific website or information on how to sign up for Copilot AI? Linda, are you able to put in the chat box the address? If you have any questions after you talk to them or whatever, just reach out to me, and I can give you more information about it. So, all right. Well, I think we're wrapping. So I think I really appreciate everyone who showed up. Feel free to stay in touch with me, scott.rosen@rosengroup.com. And yeah, keep me posted. If you have any questions, you can put them in, an email. Unfortunately, I'm not doing Twitter or tweeting or Instagram or Facebook. I'm still not caught up in that world. So, all right, everybody, have a good afternoon, and look forward to connecting with you in the future. Take care.